You wouldn't believe the lengths a survivalist will go just to get a good meal. Build a wheel out of sticks. It rotates by the flow of water. Make an automatic chicken roasting tool. This is so much fun. The latest season of Living Alone in the Wild begins. Our first contestant is Joel. He's a returning contestant from Season 7. Has excellent hunting ability. This time, Judge Chris. He was the winner of Season 8. Each player gets a box. They need to use the tools inside. Build an automatic barbecue. It is required to be a device powered by nature. You need to drill your own wood for fire. And it cooks the chicken. Opening day. The three were assigned to different environments. They need local materials. Build a suitable device. Joel's first thought was to build a water car. Today's program is mobile phone materials. The little jigsaw provided by the show is really stingy. It's super hard to use. 2 hours and Joel finally got 2 branches. Easy to rotate the shaft on it. Next, he's going to start making sliding paddles. The material looks simple. It wasn't hard at all, actually. Kelly also wants to use water as a drive. She also cut branches to make water wheel devices. Production hasn't started yet. Callie's already thinking about roast chicken. She fantasized about the device she'd created. They're going to roast the most delicious chicken. Fans of previous episodes know that. Everything Kelly makes is very elaborate. So can she make a pretty barbecue this time? Kelly crosses sticks to make a wheel shape. Hold a board between 2 wheels. Such small wood pulp. I don't know how much motivation there is. She fastened the small board to it. Soon a wooden wheel was made. You spin it by hand so fast it flies. You don't know what the effect of water transfer is. Amos uses small bamboo as material. He chose a small ditch. It feels like the current is stronger here. He decided to set up a barbecue here. You don't have to look to know it's a water wheel. It worked out pretty well, but with the counterweight. The force of the current doesn't work at all. Apparently, it's not as simple as he thinks. Joel is making with OERS. Kelly is making a spindle. Amos is constantly testing the counterweights. It's obviously not working. The current is really small. Or increase the contact surface of the water wheel. Or increase the flow of water. Amos' first thought was to increase the flow of water. Dig deep into the stream by hand. The flow of water is increasing. It can be driven without a counterweight. I don't know if I put a chicken on it. Time to the next day. Joel's plan for today is to finish the water wheel. He picked a spot where the current was strong. This place should be able to turn the water wheel. It's better than the current in Amos. If that's the creek on Joel's side. So that's the urine canal on Amos' side. Joel is planning where the water wheel will be installed. He thought this position would be more suitable. The speed of the water should be able to drive his little water wheel. He also planned to make OERS out of wood skins. The bark is wide and light. Soon he made only wooden OERS and bound to the branches. Then the water wheel is bound to the rotating shaft. The rotation of the water will move the wood pulp. I can't wait to see what Joel does. Amos looked at the water wheel before him. It just keeps turning. But what did he think was the downside? Amos decided to transform the bamboo paddle. Increase the contact surface of the water wheel. It might work better that way. It does turn faster after the retrofit. But it's still slow. I don't think you can pull a chicken that weighs a few pounds. He decided to find another spot where the current was stronger. Callie's finished building the water wheel. Next, she has to make a spindle. Only a good shaft can make the water wheel work better. She also thought of making a brush. It's for basting chicken. This girl's got a lot of ideas. It's just that this little knife is really hard to use. All the contestants are getting ready for the roast chicken. After all, it costs $50,000 to cook a roast chicken. Callie's got another bunch of sticks. Her water wheel is ready. What are you doing with all these branches? Is she going to make 2 water wheels? Time came to the 3rd day. Amos is always looking for ways to improve. He collected a nettle stick, break it, then weave it into a rope. Today he's going to finish drilling the wood for the roast chicken. I didn't realize building a fire would be the hardest part. After production, Amos decided to switch positions. Because the current can't carry a chicken, he's going for more water. Kelly did make 2 water wheels. That might give you more motivation. And made a brush. Going that high, Kelly came to the bank to make clay balls. She made a mud bowl. It's just a roast chicken. It doesn't have to be that hard. They put the water they had prepared into the stream. Amos picked the big river. The water here is deep enough. Kelly's water wheel looks better. Does she want 2 water wheels to spin a roast chicken? Joel's stream is better, too. It's just that the paddles are smaller. They're all taking the final steps. Drilling wood for fire is the last step. It makes the fire go up. I'm ready to roast the chicken. It's judging day. So, can they get in 3 days? I'm just finishing up a chicken rotisserie. Time is a little tight, but it shouldn't be a problem. First up is Joel's roast chicken. He skewered the roast chicken on a stick, but it didn't turn. Joel digs the water wheel deeper. At last, the shaft began to move. The chicken fell in the middle of the roast. I'm glad I caught it early, or another chicken will be wasted. Finally, the roast chicken can be turned over by the rotation of the water wheel. The chicken is slowly cooked, and it's baked beautifully. A few hours later, the roast chicken is finally ready. The inside is ripe, which means Joel's challenge to the auto roast chicken is a success. Number 2 is Kelly's roast chicken. She put the roast chicken on it, and eventually it will turn. Here's what I can't imagine. This bitch even made an automatic oil brush. The wooden OERs were constantly driven by the moving water. The big fat chicken is also turning on the top stick. Grease while roasting. A few hours later, the roast chicken is finally ready. The meat inside is cooked. It's really delicious. She even made some vegetarian dishes. Callie cooks the chicken to 5-star wild standards. Amos is a little different. He set the device in the middle of the river. Easy to turn, but a fire to roast the chicken. Amos put the charcoal on the side, planning to use the heat of charcoal to roast chicken. Cool down while you roast the chicken. The chicken has been caught in the cold and fire, and bake until late at night. Amos's roast chicken is finally ready, although slower. But Amos's roast chicken is the most beautiful. All 3 players finish the race as required. The result is a device that cooks the chicken, and they're drilling for their own fire. Amos' bamboo water wheel is relatively simple. Use nettles to make a rope for a fire. It was also a very good performance. And the chicken is beautifully roasted. The wooden water wheel that Callie made over here. She built something that Cress had no idea about. If you give her enough time, I'm sure we can make a 3-bedroom living room and a nightstand in the wild. And Chris was impressed by Joel's hand drill. Hand diamonds are the hardest way to start a fire. Every player produced something very good. The final winner is Kelly. She completely surpassed all the players. So what else can we expect from the contestants in the next episode? Look forward to hearing about it in the next video. The latest season of Living Alone in the Wild begins. Past season champions return to challenge. In addition to their great hunting abilities, hands-on skills are also excellent. This time they will take 3 days. A rain-proof, non-smoking shelter. The first contestant is Jordan. He was the winner of the 6th season, famous for hunting a deer with 1 arrow. The second contestant is Cress. He made his name hunting with 1 arrow, won the 8th season title. The third contestant is Amos. He survived 58 days in the 7th episode, the player who fished the most. This time the judge is Britt. He participated in Wilderness Alone twice. The first time only lasted 35 days. Runner-up for the second time, hunting ability and building ability are very strong. The contestants will get a box. It contains the tools for this challenge. It needs to be suitable for 1 person. Dry to prevent rain. Keep a smoke-free shelter during fires. Time for the first day. Their environment is pretty much the same. Have a lot of resource utilization. Jordan's first thought was to find a suitable position. He explored the neighborhood. Eventually, I found a position close to the stream. We settled down and started to work. Because the show crew provides half-finished hand saws. Jordan's going to put a handle on the saw first. It's a manual job. It looks hard on the surface. It's not easy at all. Sharpening a knife does not require a woodcutter. Soon a hand saw is finished. Very powerful to use. Even a tree of hard steel can be sawed. Jordan was digging a small trench in the ground. It's mainly used to ventilate the shelter. I couldn't figure it out for a moment. What kind of shelter relies on a small trench for ventilation? Are you sure you didn't dig a urine canal? He went into the jungle again. Look for a hollow piece of wood to use as a chimney. Good hands and good power hunting. He carried many stones by the stream. Put the stone over the ditch. Lay down leaves. Then put the barrel at the end. I never understood what he was building. Is this Jordan's dry sanctuary? I suspect this high guy is playing me. He lit a fire at the other end. The smoke came out of the wood, and there's no smoke coming out from underneath, but there is still a small amount of smoke coming out of the front. This also means that the chimney smoke is not good enough. It's really hard to retrofit chimneys in a short time. If you don't pass, you have to redo it. And Cleese picked out the location for the shelter. He builds shelters according to the wind direction. He's going to use the support points between the trees. Build a sloping shelter. First he thought of making a hand saw, just a good chainsaw, and the next work will be smooth. He made a better saw than Jordan's. Soon he collected a lot of wood. It takes a few minutes to build a frame. It can hold the weight of a man. Just for the game. You don't have to work so hard. Chris is moving very fast. Jordan chimney. Amos cut down a lot of rattan structures. They're just little sticks. What does he want? Amos is going to make a roof shelter. These willows can be made into a frame. In the first episode, Amos built a basement shelter, although it looks like a grave, but there's a lot of space inside, suitable for one person. The smoke is not good. One night's sleep could dry you out. The way to make it is very simple. You just stick two ends of a tree in the ground. Arch a space in the middle. This tests the toughness of the material very much. It's easy to break trees. Take your time with each branch. It took hours of effort. A framework is finally in place. The affordability is also very good. I can't believe this high guy is having fun. He's lucky he didn't throw him on the street. Time of the next day. 2 days. The Jordan shelter hasn't been built yet. Been working on this chimney. That little pea drain we dug yesterday to get rid of the smoke. There's smoke coming out of both ends. He decided to redo it. Today he begins his second plan, is to build a fireplace. When I saw this hole, I was lost in thought. Jordan, what's going on? Digging a urine canal yesterday. Dig the shithole today. He piled stones on top of the pit. This looks more like a shithole. Jordan came to the creekside swamp, looking for clay to build a fireplace here. I reached down and grabbed one and played with it. He brought back a lot of mud. The mud is somewhat sticky, suitable for building fireplaces. If you use it to grow vegetables, probably a very good one. Jordan's fireplace gets higher and higher. Finally add a hollow wood. What kind of fireplace is that over there? It's like a rocket that doesn't launch. Inside, you can see the bottom. Add a canopy. I have to say the players are really strong hands. Then it was time to build the shelter. Cress has completed the shelter framework. Now, he put bark on the frame. The bark protects against wind and rain. Just building a shelter. You don't need that luxury. That's a lot of tree skin. After laying down a layer of bark, he began to collect fir branches. These branches also have a certain effect on the rain. The leaves are all facing the same direction. When the rain comes down, the rain will run down the branches. So he would use these materials to build shelter roofs. He collected a lot, put them all over the shelter. Cover so thick, forget about keeping out the rain, you can stop a bomb in the sky. The next step is to test for water resistance. Take the shower and start watering. Tons of water went down. How waterproof is this shelter? Here's the surprise. It leaks like a sieve. Obviously, that's not going to work. So what the hell is all this theory he was telling me about? Now he has decided to remove the roof and start again. This is going to be the biggest waste of time. Amos is going to grass the frame. He looked for reeds nearby. These grasses have larger leaves. Enough of them will give us a shelter. He wants to bundle up the grass he has collected. Only in this way can it be sufficiently waterproof. The project looks simple enough, but his work is huge. Amos binds the collected grass to the frame. The principle is similar to that of a cow shed in the countryside. Cattle sheds in the countryside are tied to the frame with straw. When a cow wants to eat grass, it just raises its head and eats. Time came to the third day. Today, Jordan is preparing to start building a shelter. The shelter he built was very simple. A small cone. Put some leaves on it like vegetables. A shelter like this must be waterproof. Then spread hay on top of it. Amos' shelter is half built. He's also building a fireplace. That's a lot to accomplish in one day. You don't have to think about it to know it's urgent. It is very tiring to carry these big stones back and forth. Even if the fireplace is made, it may not have a good smoke exhaust effect. The fireplace isn't ready yet. It's hard enough moving rocks. He's already starting to want to fuck it up, but we still have to finish it for the 50,000 bonus. Chris was fastest on the first day, and now his roof's not even finished. He doesn't know where all this bark comes from. Decided to cover the roof of the shelter. This project is really extravagant. After laying the bark, put the branches on top of it. The shelter looks simple enough. The amount of work is very large. Water resistance must be good. Next is the fireplace. Amos is also in the process of rapid processing. Mainly, his shelter uses too much grass. In the first episode, Amos's shelter blends perfectly with the jungle. And now the shelter he's built is perfect for it. That's really talented. Jordan's got a shelter set up. This kind of grave reclining shelter. There's nothing you can do in there but have sex. They don't have much time right now. Chris is still working on the fireplace. He has this fireplace right in front of the shelter, and it's an open shelter. all finished at the last minute. Amos' shelter is no longer tested. It's contestant vetting day. So will the shelter they create fit the bill? First, the shelter for Cress. His shelter used a lot of wood. Water resistance must have passed. The next step is to test the shelter smoke. After building a fire, the smoke filled the shelter. It all depends on the wind. It's clear that a shelter like this is not what the show wants. While testing the rain, Chris is a little nervous. It's an insult to the bark. Then tons of water were poured on the shelter. If it still leaks, I think Chris is going to get his period. Fortunately, the shelter is very waterproof. Watertight. He was more satisfied. This shelter is actually perfect for summer. It was pretty good too. Personally, I think it's perfect. Amos' shelter is like a cow shed. He was also tested for water resistance. The confidentiality is also very good. There's plenty of room inside. The shelter has good smoke extraction. There was only a small amount of smoke inside. Jordan had trouble getting in and out of the shelter. The shelter has a fireplace. And obviously the smoke is very good. Jordan's shelter has made the fire smoke-free. Water resistance is also acceptable. Amos' shelter looks pretty simple, but it's difficult to build. On the whole, it was good. Jordan did a great job with the shelter fireplace. He put all his weight on the chimney, although the shelter almost, but it meets the requirements of the show crew. Cress' shelter would be the most beautiful. Complex construction, good water resistance, but the smoke doesn't work. So whose shelter wins in the end? Brick chose Jordan's. So who do you think has the best shelter? Welcome to leave a comment. You wouldn't think of a man living alone in the wilderness. How strong the building capacity is. The food we worked so hard to get. How do you cook it? Wild Alone Champion returns to challenge. Tell you how to build a fireplace to cook food in 3 days. The first contestant, Chris. She was the winner of Season 8. He is also a big man who dares to challenge the black bear. Runner-up Kelly. Survived 72 days in Season 3. Is a strong woman. The third contestant, Amos. The most caught fish of Season 7. This time, Judge Britt. Runner-up in Season 5. Each player gets a toolbox after the start. They will use the contents to build a fireplace. The winner will receive $50,000. Fireplaces don't require much. It can be used to bake bread. Opening day. They were assigned to different environments. Overall, resources are abundant. Amos quickly picked a position. There are more weeds on the ground. The first step is to clear the ground of weeds. Amos is good enough too. A straight stick can hoe the soil. He plans to build a stone fireplace. Almost every time he was moving rocks, the stones get bigger and bigger. Amos is nature's stone porter. He dug a big hole, but it's full of big rocks. I just don't understand. Do you have to build a foundation to build a fireplace? Then he went to the river to collect a lot of sand. Sand and stone lay on the stone. Then put a large flat rock. This stone must be the toast tray in the fireplace. Amos is making good progress. Cress is going to set up a fireplace next to the shelter. He dug the ground with a machete. You have to dig a hole to build a fireplace. Looks like he's got a lot of learning in him. I was afraid to ask anyway. Afraid he'll cut me with a knife. Everyone else is digging holes. Kelly is cleaning the weeds. She likes this patch of dirt, ready to pack and take back to the shelter. All around is flat ground. This is the only place where the dirt is piled up. I don't think we're digging up someone's grave. Amos used a lot of stones to build the fireplace. Kelly used a lot of dirt to build the fireplace. I'm just going to see what she makes. Okay. After moving the dirt back to the shelter, the first thing Kelly has to make is a grinder. She actually made adobe out of dirt. I think she was referencing the idea of Lucas in the first episode. Lucas builds shelters in the desert. It is also made of clay bricks. Either way is good. It's her ability to make things. Kelly put the dirt on the fire to bake. This causes the clod to harden and form. This process takes quite a while. More time anyway. No one worked in a hurry. It only cooks for a few hours. The clods are dry. But that's not enough. Kelly burns the clods directly in the wood. This may make the bricks harder. Kelly is very particular about what she does. You can see that last time we built a little wooden bridge. Fine work earned her the championship. Won $50,000 in prize money. This time is no exception. She's going to take a fireplace to the extreme. Naturally, it takes some thought. Even bricks take a while to build. No one else but Callie. Time to the next day. Chris went to the stream to collect clay. It took him a whole day to dig a hole yesterday. He carried the clay back to the shelter, then cut a bale of hay. Mix hay with clay. The resulting clay will be more resilient. The effect will be better. This is the mud. Cress was on it for hours. He also collected a lot of vines. The frame for the fireplace. You'd think he was making hunting traps. Then spread a lot of leaves on it. It's going to rain now. He had to hurry up and build the fireplace. Cover the surface and inside of the frame with clay. This fireplace is ugly, but it's not pretty at all. All the players are working hard to build, and Amos's fireplace base is ready. Like a big tray, he collected many large leaves in the field, spread the leaves on a tray, then put a lot of soil on it. What the hell is he going to do? I never understood it. Then he went nearby and started digging, turned the excavated earth into clay. The clay is then further coated in the sand. I do see it. That sand pile is actually a mold. It is mainly used to set clay. Dig up the sand pile when the clay is fired. This will make an empty clay cover. People who didn't know it thought it was a tomb. I have to say that Amos built 2 shelters. They all look very much like tombs. Now a fireplace is like a tomb. Really not sure how to evaluate his aesthetic. And Callie's fireplace is starting to go up. She used a lot of stone and clay, put a lot of fir branches in it. Then the clay was thrown in. Callie, what is this about? Now she is very much looking forward to the results of making adobe bricks. When I dig it out, it looks so perfect. She succeeded in turning the dirt into bricks. Kelly put bricks on the fireplace, cut a floor tile over the fireplace. This should be the base of the fireplace. Next, she has to make a sand mold. That's a layer of sand on top of it, built the same way Amos did. Once the sand is covered, spread wide leaves. Then cover it with clay. It's very simple. Just have a mouth. Time came to the 3rd day. All the players are building the final stage. We're all set up on the crest side. Like a little grave. That's his level of production. You don't have to look to know there's no chance of winning. Chris lit a fire on the fireplace. This can make the fireplace surface harder. Layer upon layer of hay was piled over the fire. A few hours later, it was finally ready. Open it up, and there's nothing changed inside. Chris put the charcoal in again and continued to bake. This fireplace is simple, but not beautiful. Amos and Callie over here. They're also in the final drying stage. The fireplace surface was very wet. Time is running out. Amos collected a lot of wood to burn around. Prepare the fireplace to dry on high heat. To dry it at this distance. I don't think it'll dry out until next year. Amos is digging a hole in front of the fireplace. Convenient air circulation and drying faster. After basic setting, he dug the sand out of it. Then bake it again from the inside. Callie finished the shell here too. She dug the sand out of it. The structure remains stable. They actually make an oven that cooks food. It's a little different than a traditional fireplace. The surface of Callie's oven is cracked. She had to recreate some clay. Sew it on top. Originally a very ordinary oven. It makes it even prettier. Callie's oven is almost done, but she's still doing some beautification on it. And the oven here at Amos is almost done. Not as elaborate as Callie's oven, but it's pretty good. After all, a grown man wants to be practical. There's no amount of beauty in living in the wild. Amos actually has a bigger oven. You can bake more food. And Cleese is making some last-minute fixes. But I don't know what he wants. Amos also puts another layer of dirt on top of the oven. How is this the same as Callie? And he does some beautification on it. Kelly did a very delicate job of beautifying it. And Amos's is like what? Cress. Oven put a canopy over it. All the players are trying their best. It's audit day. So what was the result of their construction? Amos' oven is ready. Made it in the shape of a bear. Successful ignition in the oven. They also made dough. When the oven temperature is hot enough, then put the dough in and bake over a low heat. How well does Amos's oven hold? If you can bake the dough successfully. It's raining a little now. Amos takes the dough out of it. Very hard. The rain couldn't have come at a worse time. And Callie's oven is ready. It looks very delicate. There's room for wood next to it. After Callie makes the dough, put it in the oven and start cooking. Several hours passed. The oven successfully cooked the dough. It tastes delicious. And Cleese's oven is being tested. Oh, this guy's got a fire under him. He's got a lot of hands-on skills. He ferments the dough with yeast from aspen trees. I hope we don't have to go to the hospital. Chris put the dough in the oven. A few hours later, the dough is successfully baked. Tough enough to throw a dead dog. I still can't figure out what the tarp is for. The dough is cooked. It tastes a little dry. Overall, it's okay. So who wins in the end? Each player's fireplace is made differently. It's very practical. Amos's oven uses a lot of rocks and sand. It was made to look like a big bear. I can see you've done it with intent. And Callie has the best oven. And the workmanship is much higher than Amos's. And she also designs beautiful shapes on the outside. The ugliest thing is Chris's oven. Simple and ugly. Looks more like dealing with the show crew. All 3 ovens meet the requirements of the show crew. The final winner was Kelly. She makes the most beautiful ovens. So who do you like better? Welcome to leave a comment. Just how good a solitary player is at hunting. 3 days to build a hunting weapon. Every one of them is off the charts. The first contestant, Lucas. He's a returning contestant in his first season. The building capacity is very strong. Runner-up Kelly. The third contestant, Amos. He's a returning contestant from season 7. It only lasted 58 days. But he was the player who got the most fish. And our judge is Joel. He's a returning contestant from Season 7. This time he created a big challenge for the players. Test the players' hunting ability. They need to complete the challenge with the tools at hand. The challenge was to build a weapon, and it can shoot 20 feet. Opening day, they were put into different environments. The players need to use local materials. Make your own hunting weapon. Joel is in the last season challenge. Demonstrated excellent hunting ability. I once hunted a deer with a bow and arrow. Freedom to roast meat. Lucas admired him too. He searched the neighborhood for materials to make weapons. The plan is to make a lion's crossbow. A piece of wood was chosen as the butt of the crossbow. This is a test of the player's design ability and hands-on ability. This time the challenge was simple, so there's a lot of time to work on it. Expect him to build a fine weapon. Amos also began exploring nearby. He's made weapons like this before. This time he also planned to make a crossbow. Here he found a pecan tree. This is good wood for crossbows. Amos cut down the tree with a knife. He's got a fucking leg. This is a waste of time. Amos split the wood in two. This wood is very hard. Then peel back the bark. Get a very beautiful disassembly. Kelly, however, has other ideas. She wants to make a weapon that fires poison darts. Well, the blow job is really her thing. The material used is a bamboo tube. Split the bamboo tube in half. Take the bamboo off the inside. Then tie it down again. Kelly always had a lot of ideas. How to make it so easy this time. She's going to use glue to close the small holes in the bamboo. The resin from this fir tree is perfect for it. These colloids can be heated to make glue. Kelly made a fire on the fire, then put the collected gum on top and heat it up. Grind the charcoal while the gum heats up. Add the charcoal to the mix. This is homemade glue. Kelly put glue on the crack. The better the tightness of the bamboo tube, the more powerful it is to launch. It's a real test of manual skills. She also made a blower. That's pretty much done. Just put the needle in and use it. I thought it would be powerful, but it didn't help, did it? She guessed it was an arrow, a weapon that took time to make. This arrow just pulls on any piece of grass. She's got legs. I don't know who to make this thing for. The stock is ready for Lucas. Now he's looking for elastic wood. There are most pine trees here. Lucas is going to make a juniper bough, and the tree is very straight. Should be a developmental stage of the tree. Got it out in a couple of seconds. Split the wood, make small trees into strips. Opening day 2. Lucas has gathered the materials he needs. The crossbow will be made today. After designing the shape, he used a rope as a bow. The method of making bows and arrows is very simple. All you have to do is bind the two ends. But is such a bow really powerful? It's hard to shoot an ant. Set the trigger on the stock. Then it's fitted with a bow and arrow to turn it into a crossbow. Such primitive weapons. This is the first time I've seen it. Just don't know how powerful. Amos has a big project going on here. Is he going to make a giant bow, an arrow? Didn't see the end. I don't know what he was up to. Amos lit a fire here. Put the weapon on it to bake. This will make it stronger. Next, he has to build a delivery weapon. He cut down a small bamboo. What is it for? Callie's making weapons again. Her second weapon is a crossbow. I mean, that's like brushing up on points. More than who made the weapons. I didn't think she'd make it so fast. In a few seconds, we only have one shape. And so the cuts with glue. Paste the bow on. This will become more solid. The bowstring also weaves itself. Feels like this weapon is even more powerful than the first one. When she was drawing the bow, accidentally broke the wood. I didn't realize it took so long. Still made a piece of junk. Time came to the third day. All the players are making their final preparations. And Callie finally repaired the crossbow. Even if it doesn't look like a killer. In fact, the damage is 0. Now she's looking for a toxin. Digitalis contains alkaloids. It affects the nervous system, causing the heart to stop beating. For safety's sake, you need to wear gloves when you pick them. Kelly collects some petals and leaves. Amos' bow is finished. After the fire, become more resilient. He also built a thrower and made an arrow. Make a notch at the end of the arrow. Then decorate with feathers. Can improve the stability of the flight. So far, Amos and Callie are working on 2 weapons. Lucas's crossbow isn't ready yet. He collected 2 large stones to make arrows. It'll be a little more lethal. It's just too hard to put on. He also uses feathers for the tail of the arrow. Soon a deadly arrow was ready, but he's still working on a second thrower. Time is very tight. Amos is also in the final stages of making a bow. Kelly is looking for feathers. It was also intended to decorate the arrows with feathers. Everyone is making a final effort. Can they finish the challenge in 3 days? even if it can be done. So what if they can build a weapon that meets the demands of the show? It's audit day. Joel will be vetting the 3 contestants. They need to build a weapon in 3 days. Requires a range of 20 feet, and it has to be at least 6 feet deep. Can the contestants complete the challenge as required of me? Callie's weapon will be tested first. She smeared the arrow with poison, then attached it to the crossbow. This little piece of shit. It's a trigger switch. When you're ready, Kelly trigger switch. I knew this was kid's junk. She managed to stick an arrow in it for the second time. But what's the point of shooting moss? The second weapon was her blowgun. This is also a piece of garbage, although it can be inserted. But will it catch a bird? Worse than the little toys I used to play with when I was a kid. Just go home and blow your dick. Don't make any lethal weapons here, okay. The second test was Amos's weapon. The test tool turned out to be a bionic deer. Stand far enough away. The first test was the bow and arrow. It looks very powerful. It's definitely better than Callie's toys. The second is to throw weapons. Power is also very good. Each of these items can be achieved. Number 3 is Lucas's weapon. He used a watermelon as his target. It takes level to throw a weapon. The damage is enough. It just takes a lot of shots. The second is the crossbow. The power of the crossbow is also very good. Whether it's sticking cow shit or shoot the watermelon, can do enough damage. Lucas is very pleased with his weapon. Joel's final assessment of their weapons was, everyone's weapons are up to par, and it can be done as required. But the ultimate winner was Lucas's weapon. Okay, that's it for this video. So who do you think made the better weapon? Feel free to leave a comment. The new season of Living Alone in the Wild begins. To the season, Big Boss returned to challenge. It takes 3 days to build a shelter. Some big guy made his own mud bricks to build a wilderness house. This is really strong. Anyone who's ever seen the wilderness and lived alone knows that. In addition to the hunting ability of the players, their ability to build is also very important. A new season of Living Alone on the Wild. This time it will take them 3 days to build a permanent shelter. Season 3 returning contestant Kelly. She survived 72 days in the wild. Not only does it demonstrate excellent construction skills and got a lot of food, is a strong returning player from the past season. This time, she will be the judge. Give the contestants some basic survival tools. Let them out in the wild to build a permanent shelter, required to be suitable for 1 person to live in. And it has a fireplace. Once everyone understands the rules, get the tools and start building. They only have 3 days. This time is very tight. In the game, it takes the average player 5 to 10 days to build. All 3 had different circumstances. Lucas is in the middle of the desert. There aren't many trees here, but a lot of dirt. He decided to build an adobe house. This is relatively difficult. First, he had to make a brick mold. It turns the dirt into bricks. He fashioned a rectangle out of wood. Make cuts in the board by the method of clasp into a solid mold. The next step is to make the mud brick material. Lucas uses some sand, then put some dirt and a handful of grass. Then mix well with water. Kneading makes the resulting clay more resilient. Put the mixed clay into the mold. Keep putting pressure on it with your hands. Remove the mold and you get a brick. Of course, a roof structure is done. Then put a tarp on it. I didn't think he could do it so easily. Doesn't a shelter like this need hands? He put a lot of stones in the shelter. Prepare to set up a fire pit inside. He made a gap above the tarp. At the same time, a tarp was used to make a window. This chimney position can be closed at any time when it rains. Start a fire in the shelter. It can be seen that the smoke exhaust function is quite smooth. Jordan also made a bed out of sticks. The shelter is very rudimentary, but it satisfies the show crew. It's enough for 1 person. Requirements for building shelters and shelters for heating. The environment here in Amos is very good, but he's digging. He's going to build a Hogan shelter. This kind of shelter is semi-basement type. A roof was leaking through the earth. They mostly live underground, about 1 meter down. While digging the ground, dig up a big earthworm. This is a very good protein in the wild. Amos certainly couldn't let it go. He went on working after eating. It's definitely a physical job. Time to the next day. The shelter on Jordan's side is almost complete. And put a lot of pine needles on it to keep you warm if there are sparks on the chimney. So this shelter could be a crematorium. He also found a branch of a wild rose. It has a lot of spikes on it. Jordan left it in front of the shelter. This will effectively secure the tarp and put a windbreaker over the shelter. He thought it would keep the wind in the shelter. shelter. The smoke needs to be vented, and he wants to blow the wind into the shelter. This brain circuit is really weird. That's the whole effect of the Jordan shelter. This is done. The shelter is surrounded by pine needles. When I was sleeping in the middle of the night, once the fire starts, probably in a dream sauna. He seemed very satisfied with the shelter, and the other runners aren't even halfway there. Lucas spends a little time making adobe. Today we spent another day digging, because they're going to build a basement shelter. Just keep throwing rocks at me. The efficiency is too slow. These adobe bricks have been formed and hardened, but we need to dry it a little bit more. This is all the adobe. Can we build a shelter? So far, Lucas is probably the slowest, and Amos has already dug the underground structure. Now he wants to think about making pinned fireplaces. Choose some large rocks nearby. Move them back to the shelter. Again, it's a physical job. Amos cut the stone into the shelter. Build a fireplace out of clay and stone. It looks very hard. It's not easy at all. The fireplace faces the bed directly. There's a gap in the mantelpiece to vent the smoke. The underlying structure is basically complete. Time came to the third day. Today, everyone begins their final work. Amos is collecting wood for Hogan's structure today. There's a lot of wood around here. You can always find something that fits. But because it's a short game, he chose some dead wood to make it. This branch is very good. Work it out. Stick it in the ground. The structure between the wood is then used to hold it in place. Once the tripod is secured, lay some wood on the bottom, mainly for the tripod to play a fixed role. The roof can directly support the weight of a person. Basically, there's no problem anymore, okay. Amos made a doorway for the shelter. Then he continued to lay wood on the roof, cover with bark and soil. This looks very much like a grave, but this sanctuary is fully integrated with nature. Sometimes it's nice to live in a tomb, and Lucas is starting to build the superstructure. These bricks are not yet dry, but it doesn't matter that much anymore. Lucas moved the bricks to the shelter, but I'm looking at a very small amount of adobe. I'm really looking forward to his effect. Then Lucas laid the bricks on the floor one by one. Glue the adobe bricks together with clay, and to make a fireplace out of adobe. What's the matter with his bricks? Soon a fireplace was finished. It looks really big. Amos and Lucas are busy, and Jordan was practicing hunting. The shelter looks big, but it's hard to even do inside. Lucas is going to build a doorway. A large piece of wood was cut down. Just lay it straight across the top. Amos has been putting dirt on the roof of the shelter and put a lot of grass. This will keep out the rain, and the roof has already been put up at Lucas. He covered it with sticks, then put a tarp over it. This shelter is complete. It's kind of rush all day. It's Callie's checkup day. They use only a few simple tools. Can we build a proper shelter? The winner will get $50,000. The first is Amos's sanctuary. His sanctuary is very natural. It's more than 10 degrees warmer inside than outside. You can still stand up. It's pretty empty, so to speak, although the smoke can't escape from the shelter. But overall, it was very good. Number 2 is Jordan's shelter. His shelter looks like a bird's nest. There's also what looks like a fireplace in the shelter. He made a very big fire in there. The difference between the temperature inside and the temperature outside is more than 15 degrees. The temperature part is also qualified. It's hard not to get hot with so much wood burning. Next up is Lucas' sanctuary. I don't know where he makes so many bricks. What he built was a mud brick gun shelter. In fact, the shelter is very short. That's why he was lying down. Otherwise, it's going to blow up. It looks really big from a distance. Half a meter high. Actually, the roof of the shelter was covered with bark. You can keep out the rain and heat. It's 36 degrees outside. It's over 40 degrees inside. The shelter has a fireplace, but there was no smoke. It can be seen that the exhaust effect is very good. Enough to keep out the rain, enough to hold a man. Overall, it was very good. Kelly's final verdict is, Jordan's shelter is the easiest and most convenient. There's a stove in there for cooking. Smoke exhaust also works very well. Qualified but not perfect. Amos' shelter can't be built without some technology. His sanctuary would be indistinguishable even to a small animal. The construction of the shelter is very good. Building such shelters requires a much wider range of knowledge. Kelly likes his roof very much. It's nice to merge with nature. The only drawback is that the fireplace does not exhaust smoke well. Living in it will be plagued by smoke. And Lucas has the most beautiful shelter. Adobe was used to build luxury villas. Make full use of the resources of the current environment. This shelter is habitable, and the fireplace is good for heating. The smoke exhaust effect is also very good. So in the end, Lucas' sanctuary wins. So who do you think has the best shelter? Welcome to leave a comment. The latest season of Man Into the Wild begins. Past season champions return to challenge. They caught a big fish by making their own hooks and made delicious smoked fish. You really have a lot of hands. The first contestant, Chris, he was the season 8 champion. Second place, contestant Joel. Season 7 contestant who survived 40 days. The third contestant, Britt. She was the runner-up in episode 5. This time the judge is Jordan. He was the season 6 champion and the one who hunts the most food. The challenge is, they have 3 days to make fishing tools. Make the fish into smoked fish meat. This skill really tests the ability of the contestants to survive. The more fish you catch, the longer you live in the wild.
The nerve-wracking part. So I got a box here, a mystery box. Your challenge is, you may use only the tools in the box. Please be some fish hook.
Build a fishing kit and a fish smoker.
Let's see what we got to work with here. We've got some antler tines, got a little bit of paracord, a little pocket knife with some kind of with no handle. But it looks like it's primitive fishing technique. Jordan's not gonna make it easy. Well, obviously I'm gonna have to make some sort of axe handle.
The players each get a box. They need to complete the challenge with the tools in the box.
Jordan
make fishing tools and caught a fish over 15 centimeters. Made in a smoked fish meat. Opening day. Each player is placed in a different position. They will use local materials. Complete this challenge. Cress is going to set up a smoky oven here. The fish caught is made into smoked grilled fish. You have to build an oven. When you dig in the oven, you can find worms. Dig a hole. Then get some branches. Make it look like a little mud hut. It doesn't have to be pretty. It's practical. Joel first explores the nearby fishing area. You should catch some rainbow trout here. Alone in the wilderness of the past. Many players use barb-free hooks to fish, and they all get very good results. This time he wanted to fish in the same way. It's a little harder though, but it's more challenging. Joel saw animal bones on the ground. It looks very fresh and very appetizing. If you use it in bone soup, you'll eat it. Animal bones are hard. He's going to use the bones to polish them into hooks. A fish hook without barbs is straight and sharp at both ends. The middle of the bone is a good fit. He cracked the bones. Get a little piece of bone. The next step is grinding and shaping. Use the knife to make a small slit in the middle of the bone. A small hook is ready. He's going to make another one. Improve fishing success. Everyone else is making ovens or fish hooks. Britt was perfecting an axe. The main idea is a waste of time. He found 2 bamboo tubes. These 2 bamboo tubes are not used for fishing. It's to test the sharpness of the axe. The axe took several blows. Didn't even cut the bamboo. Britt's embarrassing shit just came out. What the hell is he doing? Chris is perfecting the fireplace. Joel has been making fish hooks. It's raining heavily here in Britt. He collected a fishing rod, but now the rain is seriously affecting his work. To avoid being struck by lightning, let's get out of the rain first. Time to the next day. Chris is going to make fishing tools. The fishing rod is very important to him. To have good bending. These fir branches are very good. He climbed up the tree and picked a thin branch. The toughness of the branches is not very good. It could easily break. Cress tied it to a tree to set it. He's going to carve a hook out of antlers. Too bad the knife didn't work. He had to use another knife to make it. Britt is also looking for materials to make fish hooks. He found an acid bench. There are some inverted hooks on the branches. Just to get a hook. Got pricked by a branch a dozen times. The hooks on the branches are of different sizes. He looked for a small hook with a small angle. Britt's fishing spot is the pond, so there should be more catfish in there. You'd think he'd use the spikes as hooks. I didn't expect to use the top wooden pole as a hook. When a fish bites it, it gets stuck. Whether you catch it or not is another matter. Joel finished the hook yesterday. Today he's going to look for worms or frogs as bait. Grasshoppers are also good material. The bird in the tree had an earthworm in its mouth. If I can shoot the bird down, we've got roast meat and earthworms. He found a wet spot. An earthworm was found here. He found a small animal nearby. Joel wants to use this guy as bait. Picked up the rock and wanted to kill it. He didn't think it would actually catch him. How does a rat fish as bait? He used willow branches as a fishing rod. Just waiting for tomorrow to catch the big fish. Time came to the third day. Chris, everything is ready. Just need to catch the fish. He tied the fishing line to the branch. Can such a small branch really catch a big fish? And his bait was straight. Soon there will be fish on the hook. He actually caught a fish. This fish is a little small. He's going to catch a bigger fish. All the players have already started fishing. Britt's got a fish bite, but he couldn't catch it. He used a dead snake as bait. Looks like he's after the big fish. He cast the bait into the water. Soon there will be fish on the hook. Caught a small bass, but he wanted to catch a bigger fish. Everyone else is fishing in the fish pond. Only Joel was fishing in the creek. A fish bites, but doesn't bite. He decided to continue fishing in another position. Head up the river. Here's where the water is. The fish bite is very heavy. The second time I caught a fish, the fish swallowed all the bait. He just set up the oven to cook the fish. That's a lot of stone for a stone fireplace. Probably thought the first fish was smaller. He went to the stream again and began to fish. This time I caught a bigger one. This fish should fit the bill for the show. Britt caught a small bass the second time. It's a good size. He collects some taro leaves. The intention is to use the leaves to make smoked fish meat. He just dug a hole in the ground. Then light the fire. After getting coal, place the fish on the grill. The top is covered with a layer of leaves. I want to cook these fish with the warmth of the charcoal. The seal is very good. There was a lot of smoke inside. In a couple of hours, we should be able to cook the fish. Chris was not so lucky. He caught only one fish. Time came to the third day. All the players are making smoked fish. Chris and Joel made it by building an oven. Cress starts the stove. Although the fish is small, but the fish head and fish are roasted together. Hanging fish from the fire. And put a lot of fir branches over it. Nice work on the fireplace. It should be delicious. Joel set up a stone fireplace. Cover the grate with bark. The fish is already baked in there. But the tongue fireplace is a little drafty. The temperature inside is okay. It just takes a little longer. Smoke it overnight and eat it tomorrow. It's audit day. Jordan will judge the fruits of their labor. The players use different tools. I wonder if I can finish the task in 3 days. Caught a fish over 15 centimeters. And making it a smoked fish meat. The first test was Britt's grilled fish. It was smoked overnight. When he opened the leaves, the fish inside is not charred. Look golden and golden. The fish is very firm. It looks ripe enough. It tastes very delicious. I can't stop eating. And Cleese's fish is ready. The fish is dried up, perfect for preservation. It tastes good too. Joel opens its stone fireplace. The fish inside is roasted into strips. The dried fish have become crispy. It breaks into 2 pieces very easily. It's great for snacks. If you cut the fish into bigger pieces, maybe it's good. Would you rather have fish or dried fish? Jordan recognized the abilities of all 3 men, able to obtain food in the wild by means of their own survival. That's all you need for a survivor. Joel's pipe oven is very good. The confidentiality is also very high. An oven built from a mountain structure, although only 1 fish was caught. But it's enough for him to survive. Britt is very good. He made a fish hook out of a tree branch and caught 2 fish. Although grilled fish is very humble. It's like using local materials. Joel did a really good job with the materials. Used the bones as hooks and caught a rat as bait. 2 fish were caught on a fishing hook and built a beautiful stone fireplace. Smoked fish through the fireplace. Better than the other 2. All 3 can meet the requirements of the show. And it's done really well. To see who's the best. That's Joel. He didn't just catch fish. The fish hook is also very original. The fish is also very good. Joel showed more survivability than the other 2. I deserve to win this competition. So who do you think made it better, guys? Welcome to leave a comment. 3 days to build a hunting trap. Some big guy built a shelter trap. Big watermelon in seconds. And some big guy made a bird trap. They're really good with their hands. Number 1 contestant Jordan. He was the season 6 champion. A deer was successfully hunted. Survived 77 days, eating barbecue every day. The second contestant Britt. Runner-up in season 5. And the third season contestant who survived 33 days. The third contestant Lucas. He was the first season contestant to survive 39 days. This time the judge is Chris. Hunting a deer with an arrow in season 8. Win the championship. This year's challenge is, players have 3 days to build a death hunting trap. The top-rated player will be rewarded with a 50,000 bonus. Each player gets a box. They need to finish the race with the tools in the box.
Another mysterious box.
What is in store for me?
Let's get at it.
Open sesame.
Brown envelope.
You want to smell it?
To complete the challenge.
Our challenge this week is to build...
Cool.
The trap must be capable of killing its prey, and use watermelon as a test. At least crack the watermelon.
I'm gonna only use the tools in the box, and I'm up against Britt, Jordan, and Lucas.
Don't worry, kiddos. No bunnies will be killed this week.
All right, I like building traps.
All right, what do we got? Second thing I have is some bank line. I've got a kukri in here. That's a beauty. And the last thing I have are some animal bones. Only up for the challenge, so good luck to Jordan and Lucas. I think I got this one though. Thanks a lot, Clay. This is gonna be a lot of fun to do.
It's time to get to work.
Opening day. They're going to be put into different environments. Build hunting traps according to your environment. In fact, every player is no stranger to traps. The most commonly used are rat traps. This trap is also called the forward trap. Just look at the stick and you know it's a dead end. But Lucas isn't going to do these simple traps. He was gesturing on the ground with his stick. It's made mainly with ropes and sticks. There's a trigger on it. As soon as the prey touches it, they will be hung. As he spoke, the stick fell down again. Hang it up or drop it. I listened to him for half an hour anyway. I don't understand. I didn't wait until he was ready. I don't know what he's talking about, do I? Maybe he's trying to make a Mojave scissor death trap. When you're done, you can use this dog to test its power. He chose a tree root and began to cut it down, making trap gestures under the roots. After planning, start looking for the right wood. Because the test was a watermelon, he had to find a very heavy log. Lucas had his eye on the tree behind him that was about to be cut down. It's very straight. Today's machetes are also very powerful. Britt's still picking his spots. He began to collect wood. These centuries-old trees were also found by him. Such a big piece of wood. Don't say little animals. It could kill a cow. Once you've got the wood you need, I started making traps. Britt sticks 2 branches in the ground. What kind of trap is he trying to set? The soil here is too hard. Looks like he's thinking about changing positions. Britt has been collecting twigs. Lucas has already cut the wood, and Jordan was cutting wood. He arranged his wood collection in a triangle. Then he stuck the stick in the ground. People who don't know think he's building a shelter. It's just a little trap. As for making it this big, I really want to smash them to death. Time to the next day. Britt chose to change the material. He came to collect bamboo again. The ground is too hard. Instead of the fork, he built a triangular fork out of bamboo. Looks solid. It's actually a shoddy project. He had to think of something else. The ropes were reinforced. This time he could support his weight. He tested the weight of the wood again. A force like that could break a cow's leg. Britt managed to hoist the wood. A twig was attached to the other stick. I didn't know how to operate the whole process. Even Britt was lost in thought. Jordan found a wolf bone. He's going to use this bone as a trigger. Bind the wood with rope. Then I hooked the bones to the branches above. When he removed the weight column, the stick could not bear the strain and fell. I wonder if it worked or didn't work. Lucas is still collecting wood. For these 2 logs, almost cut down a tree, he is going to hang the wood with a rope. Make a scissor-shaped death trap. Because the wood used was too heavy, so it was very difficult to make it. Lucas also created a special passageway. Prey must pass through here to eat the bait. We have a much better chance of catching it. Finally, set the trigger mechanism. It's the hardest part. Bait will be placed inside. As soon as the prey touches the mechanism, the wood will fall and break his legs. This trap looks hard. It's not easy at all. Time came to the 3rd day. It's a work in progress. Lucas is going to test it with dogs. And Jordan is still struggling with the trigger mechanism. His trigger is not in the right proportion to the weight of the wood. So we're going to have to set up a new trigger. He fastened the bone directly to the horizontal stick. Finally, he was able to lift the wood. It's just this place is so big. I guess it takes a cow to make a difference. You can't catch a rabbit or a mouse. He found a piece of wood to test. Today is the last day. There's not much time left for the players. Britt's still working on the trigger. He was going to change the material again, looking for something to replace the trigger. He fastened it in a row with sticks, intended to be a pedal mechanism. Lucas has finished the trap. The rest of the time, he wanted to work on something else. He's collecting wood again. Almost everything depends on wood. He's going to make a bird trap. Lucas shapes the wood. Then it's secured with a rope. Make the wood into a frame. Then a lot of string is tied onto it. Weave a web. Turns out he was working on a dragnet trap, mostly to keep the prey under cover. Jordan's working on a hunting trap. Building a trap is like building a shelter. You can't let your prey escape when you catch it. Time is running out. Jordan's death trap is almost done. Just want to make it a little more perfect. And Britt's working on the trigger. The stakes are high. Fortunately, he was successful in the end. Jordan also made it. Today is the day of the test. Can each player make a trap within 3 days? Can the trap be made to have enough lethality? Police will judge them. The trap requirement is big enough, and it has a drop impact. The first is Britt's bamboo trap. His trap looks very rudimentary. I just don't know if I can smash this big watermelon. Just as he was preparing for the test, there was an accident. The entire trap is equipped with an explosion. Once it's rebuilt, use watermelon to test. The watermelon was smashed though, but the damage is still almost. And there's food on the way. He lifted the stick and hit it again. This time the watermelon was smashed to pieces. I can eat what I want. The second is Lucas. His traps are very elaborate. Ben wanted to test it with dogs, but it cried for an hour. This death trap is no joke. I'm sure I can knock it out and spit shit. The trap matches its surroundings perfectly. It looks beautiful. Any animal that dies in this trap is lucky for them. Next up is the watermelon test.
2.
Shit, it looks so good. I didn't expect such a dish. I just blew so much. I was so embarrassed that I took a shit. The overall effect is not as good as Britt's. Not the first trap. He came to test the second trap. Made a little duck out of wood. After a simulation test, the trap successfully fell and caught the wooden duck. The third is Jordan's shelter trap. He was told to build a trap. He even made it out of the shelter. Although it looks big, but a trap like this is useless without a cow. While testing the watermelon, the trap smashed the watermelon to pieces. It's really powerful. What's Chris going to do in the end? Britt had a lot of problems building the trap. I mean, we can work it all out. But the overall effect is not ideal. And it's not a pretty trap. Jordan's trap is the biggest. It's also the most lethal. You can chop up watermelon at once. Catching a cow or a black bear is no problem. Lucas's traps are very elaborate, but the damage is minimal. You can't smash a watermelon. In the end, Lucas's trap didn't work out as planned. The winner of this challenge is Jordan. After all, he created the biggest trap of all.
Now I get to enjoy the spoils of battle.
Two. Yeah, I'm not super impressed, to be honest. Looking for grain.
Here comes your predator. Hey!
And it's deadly too. So which trap do you think is the best? Feel free to leave a comment below. Living alone in the wilderness is the most challenging in history. Past season champions return to challenge. Besides their hunting abilities, they're off the charts. The construction capacity is also excellent. They have 3 days to build a water shelter. The winner will receive a $50,000 prize. Our first contestant, Britt. He was the runner-up in Season 5. Hunting ability and building ability are excellent. Runner-up Kelly survived 72 days in Season 3. Bamboo shelters were set up. He is too weak to catch fish. Third, Joel only survived 40 days in Season 7. But I eat barbecue almost every day. The ability to build and hunt is superb. This time, Judge Jordan. He was the Season 6 champion.
Let's see it happen.
All right, the moment of truth.
Let's see what we're getting ourselves into.
Kelly and Joel, I got this one.
Jordan,
A raft, I'm already excited.
your challenge is build a raft with a shelter.
I don't even know what my tools are yet.
So it looks like we have a parang, folding saw, 50 feet of paracord.
Just thinking about what I'm going to do. Hopefully I have the tools to do it with.
And that is it.
Hunted a 300-pound deer. Each player gets a box. The players use the tools inside to complete the challenge.
Let's get started.
Good challenge, Jordan. It's a good challenge.
Build a water shelter for this challenge. And I get to spend the night up there. This is probably the hardest challenge ever. Opening day. Each player is placed in a different environment. They will use local materials. Set up a suitable stroke. There's a lot of dead wood on Britt's side. He planned to use the wood to build a raft. He made a frame out of wood, then put the bamboo tube on top to make a flat surface. But it looks like wood doesn't float very well, because it's a night on the raft, so the surface can't leak. He's gonna have to make some changes to the raft. Kelly begins to explore the surroundings. She wants to build a raft. Need to find some dead wood head. These pieces of fallen wood are the first choice. She gathered the wood. Then they started building the frame of the raft. The wooden raft seemed to have a very large frame. Looks like they're building a villa. Joel also plans to build a wooden raft. He has his eye on a tree. The tree is dead. Dry wood floats better. It's the material of choice for rafts. Joel peeled back the bark. You can see that the wood is really dry. Building a raft is no less work than building a shelter. Not to mention Joel's building a raft shelter. Joel will collect the good wood, move to the river, and started building. I'm tired of chopping wood. It's a long way to move wood. First, he tests the wood's buoyancy. He put all the wood in the water. The wood is barely strong enough to bear his weight. I think we need more wood. And now he doesn't know what to do. Can only carry wood again. Britt's frame is wood and bamboo. Kelly's is a double wooden structure. Try to lay the surface as close as possible. It's the only way to hold up a shelter and a person's weight on it. She bundled the wood together. The more wood you use, the heavier it gets. As long as you can lift a person's weight, it's probably not a problem. The raft is now complete. Now she has to find materials to build a shelter. Kelly spread the veneer on the raft. It's supposed to prevent leaks. That's a lot of work. After tying the bark, a raft is almost complete. Next, she's going to turn the raft into a shelter. Expect her to do well. Britt's bamboo raft is in the water. It floats though, but there are uneven conditions. He's going to replace the driftwood underneath. Britt found 2 pine logs. The wood is very light. He stuck the wood in the bottom of the raft. This makes the raft float very well. The raft was lifted up successfully. Should be able to hold his weight. Time to the next day. Joel got some more wood. He also plans to build a double-decker raft. Use oversized strips of wood. The light is tens of pounds. If it's heavy, it can't be moved. A raft built out of a piece of wood this big. Feeling absolutely safe, he tied the first layer of wood with ropes. But that's not enough. Then he began to build the second structure, mainly so that dry and wet separation does not affect the shelter. Every piece of wood is very delicate, and it's solid and reliable. Now he can't wait to get in the water and test it. This raft looks like it weighs 100 pounds. Brick starts building shelters. He's looking for something light. It was no accident that bamboo was chosen. Bamboo shelters are the lightest material. It's easy to set up. He built a frame of small bamboo. He'll probably have to lie down on his own. Guardrail on both sides. Not afraid to fall into the water and drown at night. Cut your hand every time you use bamboo. Britt's luck is as black as his face. Finally placed the frame on the raft. Joel started building shelters too. Callie also starts building shelters. But she used such a big piece of wood. Make a bed. Did she really believe so much in the raft she built? There's a guard rail on the wooden bed. The bark was added to the top. Everything this girl does is so delicate, you know? She's afraid her raft won't hold the weight. With a wooden bed structure in place and a lot of grass, lay them on top of the bed to make a mattress. But it's nice to sleep. Time came to the third day. Britt set up the structure of the shelter yesterday. All we have to do today is perfect the roof of the shelter. He spread bamboo over it to make a roof. But floatability is not very good. He dismantled the bamboo again. The sky is going to rain. This will affect his work schedule. Joel prepares to be built a wooden shelter for his raft. Although it looks very nice, but it must be very heavy. But for this double-decker raft, it must be nothing. He used hay as a roof structure for his raft. This should be the lightest material. Now his raft is almost complete. Callie's done a lot of work here too, although the wooden bed is very heavy. But her roof is made of grass. Everyone's putting up the roof, and Britt still hasn't figured out how to build the roof. This schedule is very urgent for him, because we're spending the night on the raft. Joel's just got to finish the roof. You can go in the water. Callie wants to build a fireplace for the raft. There are a lot of ideas, and I want to make a chair. Didn't she give a second thought to the raft's weight? If it can be completed, then the odds are in her favor. It's already raining in Britt. He had to work in the rain. The shelter has to be finished tonight. After the rain stopped, he's starting to build shelters again. Not enough time. You just have to build a roof. But there were a few surprises along the way. His brain suddenly atrophied. Britt just dropped his challenge. Time came to the third day. Today is the day of assessment. Jordan's challenge mission. If they can build a water shelter in 3 days. We were given enough tools anyway. The shelter's requirements are simple. Can live a person. Can float on the water for a night. First up is Callie's water shelter. Before we got in the water, Kelly is afraid it won't float. So why build a bunch of stuff without thinking in the first place? She slowly lowered the wood into the water. Looks like it floats. It's not a big problem when she gets up there. The bark keeps out water. She managed to start a fire on it. And I caught a fish. Had a delicious meal. She will sleep on the water tonight. The second is Joel's shelter. He put the shelter in the water. It still looks good, and it can hold his weight. Double splints make perfect sense. He can lie on it. It should be okay tonight. Kelly managed to stay on the water for one night. It's not very comfortable, but it's also livable. I'm lucky I didn't roll in the water. Joel's shelter is perfectly safe. He slept in there dry all night. The second structure did not sink. The raft also floats very stable. The zombie apocalypse broke out. You could spend a lifetime on the water on this raft. Just don't make this life too long, because Britt never finished building the shelter. So this is just between Callie and Joel. Callie's shelter has a lot of stuff. This looks like a huge plus, and it floats very well. If the competition requirements are met, the more functional the raft becomes, the more likely you are to win. And Joe's shelter is doing a great job. It's all native wood. Floatability should be the best, but the shelter isn't as functional as Callie. Their rafts are up to the challenge. But the winner was Kelly, because she put in more effort, and the shelter is very good. So
It was an interesting night's sleep.
My raft is stable. It floats.
Ultimately, I have to choose Callie.
who do you think has the better shelter? Feel free to leave a comment. The latest season of Living Alone in the Wild begins. You have no idea how hard it is to build a shelter, let alone build a shelter in the sky. Wilderness Alone returns to the season champion. Challenge build a shelter in the sky in 3 days. Number 1 contestant Jordan. He was the 6th season champion, famous for hunting a deer with 1 arrow. The second player, Chris. He was the winner of the 8th season, hunting a deer with an arrow and eating barbecue every day. The third contestant, Joel. He was a contestant in season 7 who survived 40 days. Eat barbecue every day with a good hunt. This time the referee is Amos. He was the 7th player to stay 58 days. Has caught the most fish this season. Each contestant will be given a box at the start. They need to use the tools in the box. Build a shelter in the sky. The shelter requirement is 3 meters in the air. There is also a storage area for food. Opening day, they were placed in different environments, but there are more trees, perfectly adequate for their use. Joel began to explore the surroundings. Find a suitable location for the shelter. The 3 trees in front of you can build a shelter, just enough to form a platform with a standing position. We can build a bridge in the middle. Once the plan is settled, the wood is cut. Wilderness alone, jungle, no air shelter. Only the control shelf ever appeared. 3 days to build a shelter. Time is very tight, and building shelters is a physical job. Joel uses a branch structure. Lift the 2 trees up cleverly. This is just a shelter rock bridge. Hold the wood in place with rope. The stability of the bridge is very good. Bearing someone is not a problem. The next step is to perfect the structure of the ladder. The ladder facilitates him to carry the wood up. Soon an aerial ladder was made. The difficult part of air shelter is conception. How do you get the wood to the tree? Jordan put a frame directly under the trees. Framework as the first platform. Shelter requirements, 3 meters high shelter. So he has to go up and build a platform. Got to say the big guy is the big guy. Jordan has the easiest way to set up a shelter in the sky. Looking forward to making a beautiful shelter. Chris chose the shelter between these 3 big trees. But there's a lot of space around here. There is also more space between large trees. How is he supposed to build the shelter on top of it? After planning the plan, Chris began to collect wood. Unfortunately, on the job, the saw broke. It's going to affect his wood collection. Collecting wood is a physical job. Moving wood is also a waste of time. Chris over here, the broken saw greatly affected his work. He collected all the wood. The first step is to build a ladder. Cress peeled the wood. Is that so much to ask? Just building a shelter. It's not like building a palace. The sky began to thunder. Cleese was forced to stop working. Time to the next day. Joel started building the shelter's platform today. First, make sure the tree supports are secure. His way up the tree was more or less dangerous. Just make sure you get these beams right. It's the support frame for the whole shelter. The beams are tied, but that's not enough. Joel also put a tree at the bottom of the beam, used to hold the beam against bending. The next step is to lay the floor. After laying the floor, then tie each piece of wood with wire. So we're done with the bottom split. He also plans the location of beds and lockers. Jordan built a ladder over here, mainly to make it easier for him to climb up. It's not a big spot up there. You have to build a bed and a storage shelf in such a small space. He had to figure out how to get the wood up there. Jordan goes straight in little by little. Let's start with the storage racks. It's very simple. Just build a wooden frame, and then you plug the moss into the crevices so it can be used to store food. Then build a lid out of wood. It's easy to make, but more wood is used. Jordan also made a small switch for fear that the air inside will be eaten. But this nightstand is kind of nice. He fell while he was watching. Joel is still collecting wood. Chris just built the ladder. Jordan was making fun of Amos. Why make the shelter so high? All the players are building fast. Joel finally builds the ladder. Then he began to build a floor frame. Should we just lift the frame up? Didn't finish watching this moment. I can't believe he built a platform like this. He uses the bark he stripped off. What's even more surprising to me, he roofed this shelter very cleverly. The wooden frame is used to create a perfect roof structure. The stick looks a lot more luxurious when it's peeled. I'd rather live in a shelter like this for 10 years. Time came to the 3rd day. Jordan started building the roof of the shelter today. He's also going to use the tarp, but he wants to build a shelter with a slope, bind wood between trees, and then a row of sticks for support. Just cover it with a tarp. This half trapezoidal shelter is very beautiful. I'm not afraid to get out when I go to sleep at night. Next up is Joel's sanctuary. He's going to build a storage shelf for the shelter. Nothing new about wood. He wants to build it out of a harder rock. Use stones to build storage shelves. That would certainly add weight to the shelter. Cress made storage shelves out of tree bark. I thought he was making Louis Vuitton backpacks. Jordan was collecting moss nearby. The storage rack has been done for him. You don't even need moss. Is it a mattress? Joel built a simulation of a stone storage shelf. That's a lot of weight. Cleese's storage shelf is a bark bag. I can put things though, but there's not much to put in. It might be hard to pack a smoked fish. Joel dug up a lot of dirt. He built a fire platform with stones and mud, so you can build a fire up there at night without getting burned. Earth and stone insulate. It still looks pretty good. The next step is to build beds for the shelter. Wood is the only choice. Jordan made a mattress out of moss, and it's so beautiful beautifully laid. Joel is a different story. He cut off a tarp, make a bed, made a hammock right out of the shelter. Cress build a bed of sticks. It's censorship day. Amos will weigh in on their shelter. The requirement is to be able to stay up there for one night. And a storage shelf. So can they complete the challenges required? The first is Joel's shelter. You have to cross this bridge every time you get to the shelter. He uses wood on which he can make a fire. It can also boil water and cook food. Except he set the storage shelf on the ground. Shouldn't it be at the shelter? There's a stake in the shelf. He's gonna sleep on it tonight. Aren't you afraid to roll down at night and die? The second is Jordan's shelter in the sky. The bottom of Jordan's shelter was polished to keep the bees from climbing up. He cooks food at the shelter. Looking at the mushroom meal is very tempting. A shelter like this should be nice. It's just not easy to get up and down. A nightstand is a storage shelf. And Cleese's shelter is probably the most elaborate. You can also start a fire on it. Cress is making roasted rats today. The taste is delicious. Just sleep on it at night. I got up early this morning. It was still raining lightly, but it doesn't affect the inside of the shelter. The rat in the storage shelf is still there. Bake it hot for breakfast. Cleese is very pleased with the shelter. Jordan slept well last night too. There's no need to worry about animal attacks at night. It can protect against rain and animals. It's very comfortable to live there. The food is still in the storage rack. Prove that this is safe and effective. Jordan's shelter is generally nice. Joel's still alive. Thought he's gonna roll off. The food in the storage shelf is still there. Also effective, but the shelter as a whole is not so pretty. All three shelters are good. Each shelter is very beautiful, and it's comfortable. Jordan's shelter has the safest structure at the bottom. His shelter all uses wood as a pillar. Can stay for a very long time. The wooden beds and nightstands on the shelter are very beautiful. And there's a combination lock. Joel's shelter makes full use of local materials, but the shelter does it more simply. The most luxurious shelter is Cress's. So which contestant sanctuary is finally here? It's gonna get a good review from Amos. It's Jordan's sanctuary. Jordan's shelter made a beautiful nightstand and a bed. The roof of his shelter is perfectly wrapped, although Carl's shelter is exquisite. But the nightstand and the roof wrap are almost. And Joel's shelter is still habitable, but the risk of being killed by a fall is greater. If it were me, I'd rather stay at the shelter in Cress, because it's so good. If it's your choice, which shelter would you choose? Welcome to comment.